Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Power of Eight. I am Jennifer Smith, co-host, along with beautiful Pollyanna Blanco. We are both energy healers, and we are reviewing The Power of Eight. We every week on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, and this week we are on chapter 19. So, Thoughts for the Other is what the title of this is. Um, we'll review the chapter and then we'll go over some things that happened for us during the week. So, a few things about this. The highlights here are three healing intentions they talked about at the beginning and what each of those healing intentions were. One of the questions is a fulfilling life of pleasure, which people call the good life, or to live a life of purpose, which is better for the health. So we'll review that. And then the last part is about we are a single consciousness. And we are thinking false if we think we are separate from one another. So, Pollyanna, with that, what stuck out to you in this chapter?
Well, it's actually, I love how you started it off and set everything up. That question is such a powerful one. That's what grabbed my attention, was that whole point about, it's true in our modern lives. We think of I like how you framed it too, Jennifer, the good life, right? The good life that's so close through the media, and that we sort of get programmed and hooked into, that it's supposed to be always easy, pleasurable, easy button stuff, in the sense of, what's in it for me kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved was her point about how it's the meaning and the purpose that we find and create through giving to others that deeply fulfills us and actually helps us to remain well and healthy. So that's really my biggest takeaway from this chapter. And of course, as always, she goes into all kinds of different studies and everything to back it up. In fact, again, as always, I've underlined so many things in the book. I'll just maybe pull out one of them that stuck out. I've got a couple, okay, right here on page 195. Those whose lives were not as affluent or stress-free, but were purposeful and filled with meaning, on the other hand, had low inflammatory markers and a downregulation of stress-related gene expression, both indicative of rude good health. If you have to choose one path over the other, the researchers concluded choosing a life of meaning over one just chasing pleasure is undeniably better for your health. And she goes on to talk about how this might sound counterintuitive to the West, like you were just mentioning, Jennifer, and it starts to unpack this belief that we have of success at any cost, which I think is so powerful for someone out there who's listening right now, and starts to explore exactly what constitutes the meaning in our lives. And she refers to some scientists from Boston College who were trying to figure out why patients suffering from chronic pain and depression markedly improved in both disability and mood once they began helping others in the same boat. And as they repeatedly noted to the researchers, it was all about making a connection and being provided with a sense of purpose. Our need to help other people is perhaps the one element that gives our life the greatest meaning. And so I feel like this is something that is really stood out for me, because I've experienced this in travels to places with people I know in my own life, that I feel like sometimes, and I feel like this is something that's happening more and more in the world. People are reevaluating what is success really, and what's really at the heart and soul and source of our wellness, and how do we stay well? How do we sustain our wellness? So I'm really curious to hear what stood out for you in the chapter too, because
Yeah, what you had read, the very first part, is all of what I had highlighted too. So I think we're on the same page again too, like usual. But also in the last chapter, we were concerned about, we really got to explain this part about not giving just to get. And I think this chapter followed up nicely with what we were trying to explain last week. We didn't realize this was coming forth. So I appreciated this chapter very much. Also, last chapter, which we did not mention, she had said there were studies that once people obtain a certain income, and if the income was $75,000 per year, that the money was not what sustains people's happiness. And I think a lot of us, I mean, that was my route too. Is not that sort of success is not going to sustain you for a really, really long time. And I think this chapter points it out too with the scientific studies between two healthy groups, one that's just living the good life and just following, just fulfilling the life of pleasures and the success that they believe is what they're trying to obtain. And then the other ones who are giving and living a life full of purpose. And there's all sorts of data and, what the health aspects were between the two. So that was interesting for me. At the very beginning of the chapter, what stood out for me too is it was talking about the intentions of really, the author was setting up her group to say, really focus on the other person. Don't focus on intentions amongst the group or for yourself, but let's really focus on the intentions of sending that to another. And there was one person, Luke, who had many injuries, and there were three separate times that they sent him intentions. In the first intentions setting, there were lots of improvements, and it seemed to be very much physical improvements. And then a week later, Luke's father contacted and said, "Can you send more? We saw major improvements, but we're still having a little bit." So it was a week later on a Sunday evening, the group sent some more intentions, which then helped him again, more physical healing because of that. But then there were some emotional responses after that needed some more clearing. So then they followed up with the third intentions to get that emotional, energy uplifted and moved so he could have some emotional support. And to me, that was so important because with Reiki, all the way back, you can search over, back 100 years ago, they've always said you should have 4 Reiki sessions. And so that popped into my head like, oh, because I always recommend if people are coming for the first time, 4 sessions, 1 week apart. And I think this chapter so beautifully illustrates why that is, because you're healing in layers. You're not sometimes you can, miracles do happen, right? But it's usually in layers. Like you heal the layer and then more and then another layer. So I think it's important for people to realize there are scientific studies that back this up of why it's important to do that,
I'm really glad you brought that point up, especially the example with the Reiki, because that's the way I like to work too. I was often doing 3 sessions, and at the same time, this idea of multiple sessions, the 4 makes perfectly good sense too. I mean, perfect balance in ascended numerology, right?
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like, also, I think for the person who's receiving the Reiki, they begin to see a progression from the first. If you just have one session on its own, it sometimes, like you're saying, you're working the layers and everything like that. It's sort of, they peel away. We often learn in our inner awakening journey through contrast. So noticing what feels a little different, what seems different, and then just understanding too that healing is a process. It's not like tear the Band-Aid off, and and yet there can, as you said, can be moments where there are spontaneous, experiences of healing or of miracles, and miracles, because they're really the same. It's really the same, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, right? The that example too at the beginning of the book, how that stuck with me too, because I thought about, I mean, he'd fallen from, I think it was, what was it, 40 foot or something building. It was, what is it?
40-foot structure.
Yeah, 40-foot structure. And I mean, he broke so many parts of his body. I mean, lungs, and bones. I mean, things like it just overwhelming, the number of things he was physically dealing with, as well as the emotional and the mental, and even this, his it's just overwhelming, right? His desire to even be here to deal with it all. The power of that connection from the group sending that no strings, I like how she calls it in the book, it comes up again in this chapter too, no strings attached, healing intention to this young man, and how, like you shared, in just 4 intention groups, the impact was so profound. And what stands out for me, and I feel like we're totally on the same wavelength here as many times, I'm sort of peeling it back to the essence, right? That's the concretize. That was the concrete version. Getting tongue tied here. I'm getting excited. But really, I think this is the one thing that's hidden in plain view for so many of us in our modern, fast-paced, busy lives, is that it's that moment. And I know we've all felt it, and this is kind of getting into the and more already. I hope you don't mind, but that those moments of connection with other human beings where we're in our hearts and not in our heads, we're leading from our hearts. This is where we're always exactly where we need to be in any given moment, regardless of our mind's commentary about it, right? And that when we can actually give ourselves permission to live from the heart, to know what that is like, looks like, and how to experience it. It's not just an intellectual concept. It's what it's, at least in my own journey, I know I'm in that space when I can feel that connection, right? To another human being. Like even right now, as we're sharing, I feel connected to you, and I feel connected to viewers who I don't even know who are watching. But because at the end of the day, what's so fascinating, and this has been something that's been really present for me this week, it's been getting clearer and clearer, is this tipping point we're at now with the new earth birthing of multidimensional awareness, right? It's beyond even perception. It's what we've been talking about through every single chapter, but it's just, I feel just so inspired right now to share it. It's that this is why I believe what she's finding on a scientific level with the intention experiments is that when we're focused on sending healing and positive intentions to other people, and not just what can I get from it, the impact is really, there is only one of us. And so in every single moment, there's not just one linear timeline, right? There's multiple timelines. And I like to call it like a choose your own adventure novel. So I make one decision to put my focus here, that opens up another timeline. 2 seconds later, my focus goes over here, that opens up another timeline. And so it's like a web. It's not just one line. And if people realize that more, these intention experiments really, especially where we are at the book now, really speak to when we're going through each moment of our day, we are creating our reality. We are, so if we're only focused on ourselves and what I need, it's like, it's, it's kind of like we're pinching off our creativity. We're pinching off the possibilities, because it's like having a conversation with someone who only talks about themselves as opposed to being more interested than interesting, and wants to know about the other person. It's like you have that feedback loop when you're sending healing intentions to another person, positive intentions to another person. There really is no other person. It's an expression, of the oneness. So what we send out is that feedback loop, and it's that beautiful, like how we're co-creating each moment. If we were not to put our attention there and look at it, this is why I think people suffer when there's a lack of connection and meaning, and it just feeds into that perception that we're somehow alone and isolated. Okay, I'm going to stop there because that was a lot. That just was coming through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And you think about the timelines that we create every moment, like every decision, every thought. Have you experienced where you've, because I've had these and it's difficult to describe, but where it feels like we are eliminating some timelines that we have created in the past? Have you had that experience?
Yes, this is the and more part for this, like, very much so in the past week or so, it's been more ever present, like, I've noticed it before in the past. Even today, this okay, I'm gonna share this. I was driving to work today. Oh my gosh, and I know I've had this experience before, but today my reasoning mind was like, "Okay, let's double check the rear view mirror, let's just see." There was a car just ahead of me that was going extra slow, and I was just a little uncomfortable, and I had the opportunity once I turned right onto this other main street to go around that car because I was like, I don't know if they're distracted or if they're on their cell phone, or I just felt a little uncomfortable. So I trusted myself. I listened. I moved into the inner lane. And as I was doing that, and I got just ahead of them because I was going the speed limit, but they were going extra slow, I looked back in my rear view mirror 2 seconds later, and they were nowhere in sight. There was no place for them to turn
Mhm.
into, and what I was conscious of in that moment was I stayed neutral. I noticed it. I listened to my body as a pendulum kind of thing, as a compass, and I made a choice. And the choice was clear because I am safe on the road. And I looked back and I was like, no, that's not possible. Like my mind, this is my mind speaking, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to let my mind indulge for a moment because my mind is freaking out, because it's like, my mind is like, wait a second, that's not possible. There's no driveway for them to turn into. The other, that car is another color. That was a white car, that doesn't logically, it doesn't make any sense. And I think the exciting thing about this is that I'm noticing and when we pay attention to these things, this is where I think we have to be really careful at this point, um, on Earth, because we could be having a conversation with someone, and as they shift their focus, their experience of the present moment, even though we appear to be sharing the same moment together, you know, could be markedly different even than ours. And to not get entangled in a right fight about which is more real or true than the other, because this is just the fluidity of it all, right? I don't know if
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
So what you described, I think I've had an experience like that. It was probably about 3 months ago, but it was it's almost like, how did that happen? But I just say thank you for allowing me to experience that. But I'm sure others have experienced it too, especially like if there's like if we're talking about driving a car, if there's like extreme danger or something like that. Sometimes miraculous things will happen to
Yes.
keep things from happening, and, I know that people have had those type of experiences as well. So that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Um,
And I
yeah.
guess if anyone's had an experience like that, if anyone's listening live right now, and you can relate to that, we'd love to hear your experience about your experience. If you want to drop it in the chat,
Mhm.
that would be great. I know that's even happened to me. There have been times where I've been on the highway, and I used to always call in all the angels to get in the car with me, especially Archangel Michael. And I still do. Michael and Uriel, they're my driving companions.
Mhm.
And there have been moments where I've been in that flow state while I've been driving. I've been in trust, I've been in peace, I've been in, presence. And as I've been driving, there'll be a split second sometimes that something happens, like out of the blue, a car darts or something like that. And I stay calm, and it's amazing how something intervenes in that moment. And it's maybe even millimeters, but all is well. So
Mhm.
it's amazing how I feel like as our consciousness expands, as we become more practiced and it just becomes a habit of noticing what we're noticing, then from that neutral mind kind of place, it's becomes more like I almost see it as like a fun game. I'm playful with myself about it, where sometimes I'll notice a thought. Even this morning, I can't even remember what it was about, but a thought started coming up, and it was like I smiled at the thought, and I said, "Oh no, that no, thank you," like. And then I was like, choose again another thought, right? And it wasn't a big deal. It was just a fluttering of a thought, right? And it wasn't anything. I can't even remember. It wasn't anything significant. But I just had this awareness that if I go this way with that thought, it means I'm not going the other way, or even it's not even like a full 90-degree, plot twist. It's just like a nuance. It's nuance. So if I go this way with that thought, no, I think this thought feels better. I'm going to go this way, and it's kind of a fun way to live, It,
It is. It
yeah.
is. Yeah. I think it's going to get more fun, even
Yes.
more fun. I'm excited about it. Was there anything else in the chapter that we wanted to focus upon? I had a few things written down. I thought that were pretty
Thanks for
significant.
indulging me. I know I jumped ahead there.
No, it was perfect. Perfect timing. Fit right on in.
There were so many things in here.
Oh, here's the one focusing, where it says to focus on the other. And I
Yeah.
thought this was important, where she says, I don't know if I can find it here in the book, but the gist of it was, oh, here it is, page 191. At times, focusing on one's own intention may be the metaphysical equivalent of a watched pot not boiling. So I think that's, we're sometimes if we're focusing on our own intention and what we want of our own life so much that we're holding on to that expected outcome so much that it's not happening. So sometimes directing your focus, just, doing good for others, helping others where they need help, will help. Uh, how would we say that? Because we're kind of pinching ourselves off when we expect, kind of helps that flow open back up, and then things start to flow. I've experienced this within my life, without you not really focusing on it. And I've heard other people call it this is the art of allowing. And so I do that sometimes. Just this week was just, I don't have a lot of hard plans for things that I have to do. And it's more of just being in the flow this week, just whatever comes. I mean, I have, a meeting, a couple of things a day that I need to attend to. But other than that, I'm just kind of flowing this week. And it's been great.
Oh, wonderful. And it's funny. I feel like we're bookends. We're like, I'm the complete opposite of you in the sense that in teaching, oh my gosh, that we've got parent teacher interviews coming up, and we had to email parents on Monday. So like there've been and marking and getting some field trips ready, for the week after. So there's been, and yet I can agree with you in the sense that I've allowed myself to be in a flow state, and I've noticed when my thoughts wanted to go, even because it's just the habit of the habit, right? Like these old tendencies that are starting to fall away more and more the more I practice the noticing game, where it's like I'm feeling calm, and then my mind wants to kind of pull me into a thought, and I can feel this feeling in my body coming up. And I'm like, oh, I want to preserve that good feeling of peace or calm or trust or flow. And I can sense that thought is kind of, like throwing a log into the water, or something, or a rock. And I'm just like, I just go back to thank you, all is well, or same thing on the road driving to and from work. I'm surrounded by excellent drivers. I've arrived home safely, like all this stuff, and just noticing that. So that allowing piece, I love that. That's so important, right? And I just wanted to say that, because if there's anyone out there listening thinking, well, my day is so full, that's, you know what I mean? Like it's again, that if I could easily go there in my mind too, right? Especially when there are, and you could go there too if you have a week that's particularly demanding. And I think it's just really good that we can both sort of share from our own unique perspectives this week, that it's not what I'm trying to say is it's not contingent on what's happening out there. It starts off with where we are and here. That's the power of the intention, right? That
Mhm.
it's this ability to be in flow is not just when we don't have as busy a week. It can be more challenging when it's a busier week. However, it's not exclusive to, having fewer things on the to-do list, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
someone out there really needs to hear that, right? Because I think I used to even believe that, well, if I were retired or something, like, then, things would be more calm. And it's like that's making my inner state dependent on something out there. And again, that's actually blocking and pinching off the allowing, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think, people who have very busy days, um, that's part of the learning process, is how do you stay in that state of intention from inside, and if you can do that throughout your day with all the activities, then, you practice it, it becomes easier, and I would say if someone has a full day is to, and this is what I do in my day if I have full days. I've kind of designed my life a little differently now, but I have full days still sometimes, is to work in intention setting, like segments and segments. So that segment can be with, you're meeting with people. So what are your intentions for that energy segment during that meeting time? And then you move on to the next segment. Driving, what is your intentions for driving? What's that segment of intentions there? And then just to go with the flow in those segment times.
Yeah.
That
And
seems to work well for me.
and it feels to me too, when you're talking about the segments, I like that it's really keeping us in the present moment,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yeah.
this is where I think, in my own experience, but in the past, and still tries to from time to time, although I'm onto its game, you know, is when because I really, oh gosh, my beautiful mind, it's trying everything. The more I'm noticing the stuff, it's trying everything in its arsenal to get me to do the everything in its power to do take me in all kinds of weird and wonky directions. And it's just like, I'm not taking the bait. I'm not taking the bait, right? Because one of the ways it will bait me is it will take me into a thought from the past. And the interesting thing about a thought from the past is it's not even about the past. It's about the story I've made up about the past and a perception about the past that is probably not even identical to what actually happened in the past exactly. So instead of being in the present moment, I'm recycling the past in the present moment. I'm missing the present moment. And then my mind will jump to the future and, do something funky over there too, about projecting the past into the future. Like, that's what it's done in the past before. And now I'm beginning to recognize that, it's those thoughts are still there. It's just noticing them and taking my focus off of them and setting, that's where the intention comes in. It's so important because, like you were sharing with the segmenting, um, your day, it helps. It's a reset each chunk, you know, what is my intention for for the drive home or for this meeting or whatnot. And then that helps to keep the flow, and I
Helps you
can,
keep present.
yeah,
And, the thinking about the past, I mean, I think that's why we talk so much about being present because you have that nice flow and it feels good. It feels peaceful just being now here present. When we think about the past, our subconscious and our emotions internally, it doesn't know any different. So it's still going through these same vibrations of what you lived in the past. That's why it's like, get out of the past, rewrite your story. And it's not that hard to do. You know, something that keeps coming to my awareness is sometimes I feel like in the healing industry that we talk so much about trauma and just over and over, and it's like, let's just rewrite the story, you know? Let's just I even thought about, does healing the word healing, what do people think when they hear the word healing? Because to me, healing, and really why I started down the path of healing, because it was more of it was, to me, it was more abundance. Like there's more that we can do. We can heal, we can help people heal, we can teach people how to heal. To me, that was more of an abundant state. And I always think, "Hey, maybe we should change the word healing to something else, because you're really expanding your consciousness. You're, you know, you are unwinding some of the patterns from the past, but sometimes healing can, I think, can make people think there's something wrong whenever you just shift that to everything's good now. Let's just rewrite the story.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Like, really and truly, I'm so happy you brought that up, because as you were sharing that too, I've noticed that as well. It there's even like if you say to if someone says to themselves, I'm stuck, or I don't know what to do, then what
Mhm.
happens to the brain is it just literally gets into a groove, right? Where then it's easy to go on this sort of downward spiral into overwhelm or frustration, which is a different
Mhm.
frequency, right?
Mhm.
Versus saying, I know what to do, even if the mind of form is going, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I know what to do. And then just trust and ask and be open. You know, years ago, one of the best pieces of advice when I was going through an experience of a loss in my life, and I was stepping into a new experience from a friend, she said, just go and be open. And that was a concept I wasn't familiar with. This was like over 20, almost, well, yeah, 20 some odd years ago. And, but it was the best piece of advice someone had ever given me, because, and it was kind of good that my mind of form didn't understand what being open meant, because I just said, okay, I'm going to go and be open, because it just, she was much older than me. It felt wise. It resonated on an emotional level. The frequency of it felt awesome. And there was my mind going, what do you mean be open? We don't understand what it means, be open. And I was just like, I am going to be open, you know, and that intention alone brought magic and miracles into my life. So yes, absolutely. It's so true. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. And just, you know, I'm stuck, saying that, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. And then changing it to what you said, I know what to do, right? You just kind of, that automatically makes you feel better. I mean,
Yeah,
just listening to it and saying it to yourself, okay, I know what to do. The first thing, I just need to quiet the mind,
yeah.
get in the present, everything is well, I know what to do. And then just start talking yourself in that direction, right? And that's how you can come out of that. So no one has to be stuck.
There you go.
Thank
And
you.
if I were timing you, that took all of like maybe 30 seconds, not even 10 seconds, just to make, and this is the point I just felt really excited about. I'm excited about our conversation today. I love everything that you're sharing and what was in this chapter, because I feel like this is the juiciness of our times. It's like we're right at the early inception of this experience for humanity, which is paradigm shifting in terms of how we go through our daily lives, in terms of how we even it's beyond perception. It's because it's beyond the mind of form. It's just a new way of navigating through our day, and a new way of being in partnership with ourselves and with other, you know, human beings on this planet. And just it's a massive reframe of everything we've understood up until now. And yet it really is, you know, I've said this before, ever since I was in my teens, I felt like, okay, what comes after the scientific revolution? I feel like we're in a creative revolution. I was using the same language, and revolution doesn't feel right anymore, but definitely a creative paradigm,
Mhm.
where, you know, multidimensional creativity, really. It's that capacity to, as our consciousness expands, to realize that we are massive creators, and as always, the universe has a sense of humor, because the sort of the well, the punchline is that we've been doing this all along. We just haven't recognized it. And when we recognize it, it's very empowering, because, like we've just been sharing, even in certain circles where there is, on the one hand, that intention to get better, feel better, heal, recover from things. There's a little bit of an undertow, an incongruency between that positive intention and then the habit of that still needs to be a little more unwound about some of the languaging and how it reinforces certain limiting beliefs about what truly is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So in today's world, because we see the energies are available now, right? I think people have been able to do that in the past on their own, but now it seems like it's more available, and there's more support for people to move forward with
Yes.
with their lives, with who they are, and what they want to do, and how they want to express themselves in the world.
Yes. It's an exciting time to be alive, because everything's available. Everything's available. And I feel like this is where the light workers, the light leaders, the empaths, the highly sensitive people come in, because it's the way showers, however you want to identify or, describe it, just as we shine increasing amounts of light of awareness on our experience, and we make new meaning out of it, and we share that, we are also showing the way for others and giving them, it's like there's that beautiful law of entrainment in science. There's that just seeing through, seeing beyond limits is what I want to say. It's not even new eyes, it's seeing beyond limits, and just seeing the limitless possibilities, and realizing that we have this emotional guidance system that can help us to navigate. There's even a game too. I sometimes play this with myself, where it's like, because I think I learned it actually from childhood. I'm going to just do a little, and it's very simple. I remember going for an ice cream sundae one time with my mom when I was little, at one of those counters in a store, lunch counters. And I remember at the time she was on a diet, so she didn't want to have ice cream. And she was watching me eat it. And she said at the end of it, "Was that good?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Would more be even better?" And I remember saying, "Yes. Would you like another?" And I said, "Yes," because her father had played the same game with her. And so I have this game around ice cream as a child when I was little, but I also play it in my life now from time to time, where I'll be like, okay, if this feels good, okay, does this feel even better? And does this feel even better than that? So it's like I check in and I listen to myself, because sometimes there's a bit of scaffolding. I'll notice that when I'm in an area of growth where I'm expanding my consciousness, I will try on a new thought, where maybe I've been noticing I've been pinching something off, and it'll feel better. And then I'll ask myself, well, what if I thought this? Would that feel the same or even better? So it's the even better. I don't know. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I like that. It's like reaching for a better thought, and you just keep going, and you can feel it. You can feel it on your insides, right? Is that, yeah, yeah. Because anything's possible. Like anything, like really big possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I have been looking at some of the scene practices and going through those over this last week. And it's just amazing the abilities that we have whenever we're in the present moment and we're really concentrating our intention on something specific and what we can do with our energy and our healing just for ourselves. And yeah, there's so much, and it's fun to explore.
Definitely. And it's just there's that Martha Graham quote that's coming into my mind right now. It's just discovery, discovery, discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished sharing a post about how curiosity heals, and I really feel that it does, because when we're in a calm state of mind where we affirm, I am safe, I am at peace, I'm connected, I'm loving, I'm connected to my joy, whatever one of those higher frequency states. When we're in that calm place and we're present, then that's where we can be curious. And especially when we're in that calm, relaxed place, trusting place, present place, and we are noticing what we're noticing from a neutral mind, that allows us to be curious. I feel like curiosity replaces judgment,
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yes.
and because judgment kind of is you know the opposite of it. Judgment kind of comes in and says, I've already made a decision. It pinches off possibilities. Whereas curiosity says, I wonder if, what if, maybe if, and it plays with possibilities. It doesn't come in like a dictator and say, this is the way it's going to be, and it's open to the feedback, the partnership with the body, the felt sense in the body, the emotions. Like, it's that everyone sitting around the table, the boardroom meeting, okay, if I go this way, body, what do you have to say about it? Emotions, what do you have to say about it? Thoughts, what do you have to say about it? And as consciousness itself noticing all of this stuff from a neutral place, discerning, making a judge, like not a judgment, a discernment, because it's not this is better than that. It's just, okay, go this way for this effect, go that way for that effect. Okay, which am I choosing? And this is where the intention piece comes into. Having that intentionality is like, it's like the steering wheel, really, on the Merkaba vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 4:44.
Oh my goodness, the angels are with us. I wonder if is there anyone with us in the chat too, just out of curiosity?
We've got quite a few people live. Let me see if anything in the chat. Here we go. No, nothing. I do not see anything in the chat yet for us.
Maybe we could just ask people if what we've been sharing is resonating with and for you. If you want to just drop a 1 in the chat. We're all one and on the same page. Just a 1. We'd love to hear from you. Just, of course, only if it's safe to do so. And if you're driving, don't do that.
Right. Do not do that. Okay. So let's talk about the and more for this week. Or what's happened. I kind of went through my journaling so I would have a few points of what's happened over the week. For me, well, a couple episodes ago, there was a lot happening just for me, but over the last week, it's been more of the scene practices, which I think it's important because they're available. They're available for everyone. Everyone can do this, and it's amazing. So I just wanted to point that out. And then, yeah, most of my week has been just going with the flow, paying attention to what's surfacing and coming in for me, and then following that lead. I do in the healing room on Thursday. there's still a lot of the pink energies coming in.
Oh,
And I
that's beautiful.
actually did a podcast with Medina. She's from Australia, and she has a Rise Humanity. She's been working many years on podcasting and putting out the good news. She's like the Good News Network of things that are happening in Australia. But that was one of the things we talked about is all the pink energies, which was really started to be pretty prevalent to me. I would say from about the July timeframe on is whenever all the pink energy started anchoring, especially in the healing room or with people that I was with. Um, I think I mentioned people seeing auras, the pink energy, the auras, and then in the healing room on Thursday, that was one of the experiences. Was just the pink energy, which is really like the divine feminine energies that are anchoring onto the earth, which is creating a great balance. For the planet, but individually too, which once you have that balance, that's whenever manifestation can occur a lot easier as well.
Yes, because it's the receptivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that you've had that experience, and that's very, very, very affirming to hear that. And it's curious too, because I have this sort of spiritual hygiene practice I do every morning in the shower, and in around, I'm just tracking it in my mind. I know it's been since the summer too that I've shifted it up, and I've added, like when I'm connecting to Mother Earth and I'm connecting to her crystalline core and I'm sending gratitude in there. Then I have a process where I breathe in the golden platinum plasma light, and I've been adding pink energy into it. I've been
good.
And breathing that up to my earth star chakra, spinning it out, opening it up, and then kind of like a sheath, pulling it up along my chakra pillar and beyond. And so it's interesting because I have worked with the pink energy before. It really speaks to me a lot. And I like the pink golden energy for that reason too, because it's unconditional love and light, and it's that soft feminine energy. And it's even, I don't really do as much. Well, I shouldn't say that. I guess I've reframed how I think about it. I just think about filling myself with light rather than in the past, I used to call it shielding, because I just feel it's more like, I'm going to say this playfully, upping my wattage. And I say
feeling with light, right?
Feeling with light, because then it makes me smile, right? And then that's nice.
Well, that is essentially what we're doing. I mean, igniting the light body, and to me, it feels like that. I do the same thing. I don't do so much shielding work. I did in the very beginning whenever I was going through my spiritual practice, but now it's just more encapsulating with golden light. Sometimes it's royal blue light. It just depends on, what I'm being called to do. But it just feels like that's filling you with that light and love and that good energy. And that is enough that's enough for protection, because we want to, we want other people to feel the energies that are available.
Yes, and that's why I mentioned the thing about the pink light when I was first learning about shielding, because I used to always use the white light, and then I shifted to the pink light, because what I was noticing with the white light is that it was very protective, but it was also sometimes keeping certain things out that were positive in a way, at least that was what I believed and what I noticed at the time. Now I just feel like the pink light in general, along like you were saying with the golden light, I see that as like turning on my light body every morning, because I do a light body activation with my magnified healing practice as well too. And even in the shower, I see everything kind of coming online, like turning on the lights inside. And I like that. So I like how you express it, healing with light and just infusing the body with light. It's because really too, if you think about it, it's our life force energy. We are light beings. And so this vitality is is connected to that sense of how much light, we can hold, right? So it's that, and more in terms of like even I was thinking what was present for me this week too is when I'm eating foods that are filled with light. Like,
Yeah.
I've always eaten pretty healthy, but it just, when I reframed it in that way, not just eating healthy foods, but light filled foods, so then I'm eating light because I am light, so noticing, does this food have a lot of light before I put it into my body? So it's because, of course, I'm well aware of my ego likes to eat for comfort, whereas my soul and my spirit wants to eat light to nourish the light in me. So along with the visualization and the healing with the sending the light, it's also what's been present for me this week. It started with the food, and now as I'm saying it, I feel like the next thing is really, it's not that it's completely brand new for me, but just as we're talking, it's sort of bubbling up in a more expanded way, is really playing the game of looking for the light in experiences and choices, like which one feels more light filled, which one, is almost like has all the lights on in the room for me, ding, 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 it lights up.
And the light-filled experiences, and it makes you feel lighter. It makes you feel more joyful is how I would describe it. It feels different.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. And it's interesting, as I'm sitting here looking at you, I see a lot of gold light around you. I do see a lot of gold light. Just noticing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to, filling with light, and that's really just being the connection with spirit, right? And that fills you up. And you can tell when you're like, if your thought streams, my thought streams, anybody's thought streams, you can tell by what you're thinking and how you're feeling. Because if someone's holding on to a thought that's not good, you can feel that energy, just like it just feels like it's weighing you down. And whenever you reach for those, you were talking about reaching for a better thought, you're getting more plugged in, more connected, and that's when you start filling up again with the light, with the energy, with the essence of who we are.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you just made me think of there too, Jennifer? Junk food. It's just like after you eat junk food, after you eat a bag of, no offense, Cheetos or something like that, it's like you might have a temporary moment of, like, there's some sort of temporary short-term payoff of, oh, you kind of get like this dramatic, something peaks, the emotions peak, the mind peaks, ego mind peaks, the physical body peaks. It gets a little peak, a little whew, but that's not really about fulfillment. That's just about going back to the pleasure point that you mentioned earlier. It's a short term little blip on your radar screen versus the long term sustainable, lightness of being, deeper meaning and purpose, alignment to spirit, like you're just talking about. And so it's not again, it's not about judging ourselves, but it's not, because I feel sometimes too, when I share this stuff, I'll be completely transparent with everyone, like my own ego mind. I think this is some place that is very common in the, and a lot of people don't talk about it. So I'm just going to share it very transparently. I mean, like I've been sharing all along, in the noticing game, there are thoughts that I don't want to notice because I know how far off they are from the truth of who I am. And yet somehow they're still in there somewhere sometimes. And one is when things are very, like I'm focusing on the positive, oftentimes, because the ego mind is just about keeping us safe, and it's like the bouncer, it'll come in and say, oh, something like, this isn't sustainable, or, it's not always going to be like that. And it's just noticing that I'm not that thought, and that's not me. And it's just an old program that's been hardwired in. And the more I can focus on noticing the thoughts that nourish my energy, because it's not that something outside of me nourishes me or is a source of my happiness or my meaning or my purpose. It's up to me to moment by moment choose that. And it's not about judging myself if I lean this way or that way. It's just about, continuing to move forward with that practice of noticing it. And at the same time, it's also not about glossing over difficult situations. Like sometimes there's spontaneous emotions that come up, and our emotions aren't right or wrong, and they need to be released. I mean, this happens on the healing table too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, the key is to not get stuck in them, to not define ourselves by them. When things are coming up for healing, when maybe a thought from the past comes up, or we've just experienced a sudden loss of something, it's not that that's wrong and we're going to avoid it and skip over it and pretend it didn't happen, or it's not in coming up now. It's just to notice where it's coming from and where that needs more love and light and awareness, to allow it to move through us, release it, so we can make the spaciousness for more of what we do want. That's just what I want to share.
I think in the beginning, whenever I was really focusing on paying attention to my thoughts, because you go through life and I had not knew that I should even do this, but you just if people would just take an hour and really pay attention to what their thoughts really are. It was surprising to me whenever the first time I tried that. And the self-talk, that's what comes up, is the self-talk about how you're thinking about yourself, really, is what would come to my awareness. But like you said, you can't judge yourself because of that, but rather just say, oh, I'm so happy that I'm now noticing this, because you can't change something unless you become aware of it. And then just take a deep breath and release it. And then just keep going with it. And there was something with that, taking that deep breath and releasing it, which I didn't know at the time what I was doing, but it felt like that energy was just being transmuted, which really it was. You're just releasing that energy. So just, if people are practicing this and just becoming more aware of what their internal thoughts are, thank yourself for noticing it, take a deep breath, release it. And you just keep the momentum going in that way.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And just really trust that when you do that, it's happening, just there's a saying, trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Trust the process. What we do the most consistently is what will show us, over time. Like, I think we have to be patient with the process. And when we're doing this, the first time, the second time, the third time, that's why I love what you said about an hour a day, where you just kind of, you're more setting, it's like a game. I'm going to pay attention this next hour. You could even start with less if you needed to in the beginning, but just, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to notice my thoughts without judgment and be curious. And then just be patient, trust the process, because whatever we do consistently it's going to just start to naturally emerge. And we have to be patient, rather than, if we don't see results right away in the way we expect. Again, that's another thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
We might and we might not. It just really, it's to stay open and trust the process, and allow ourselves to be delighted and pleased by
And
folds,
to
right?
know that we've all been programmed in the same way.
Yes.
And you
Oh,
have to overwrite the programming, and to really get to the point of manifestation and instant manifestation, is we have to talk nicely to ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves, because once we believe in ourselves, other people believe in us. So that's why the negative self-talk, you got to notice it, you got to release it, and
yeah.
make that a habit until you can get into a pattern of being nice to yourself,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Be your own best friend.
Yes.
Uh,
And that's the process. I mean,
yeah.
that's why it takes time, and it can be very quick for people, or people can drag it out and make it very long. It's just that's the inner work that needs to be done too.
Well,
People
imagine if
call
you were
that inner
dating,
work.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Imagine. Oh, sorry. We're both on the same. We don't usually do that. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, imagine if you were dating yourself, right? You wouldn't just go 0 to 60 on a date with yourself. You'd be like, you'd start off, just letting it be natural, and, you wouldn't force things. You wouldn't, propose marriage on the second date,
Mhm.
you would just get to
Right.
know each other better, and, and be curious and want to learn more about yourself. And, and then
Right.
over time, it's like naturally you build trust, you build comfort, you build safety, you build intimacy. And then lo and behold, you're walking down the street and someone says, wow, you look great, or you seem so different, or, and then the universe mirrors it back to you, or it comes in all kinds of delightful ways, right?
It does, yes. Very much so. So we are an hour in already.
Wow, the time flies.
We probably need to be wrapping it up. Yeah, do you want to go ahead and take over the summary, or is it any closing thoughts?
Just basically, I feel like the cherry on top for today is, the takeaway from this chapter is looking for purpose and meaning, and not even looking for, I'm going to rephrase that, creating purpose and meaning in our lives through where we place our focus and attention. And that starts with showing up for other people, sending, positive intentions out into the world, because it's all one in the end anyways. It's almost like we're sending them to ourselves, but because we've let go of the fact that we're sending it to ourselves, we're acknowledging the oneness. And then it's just this beautiful, it's a feedback loop without needing or expecting it to be one. It's that's the trust fall. That's the moment where we let go. We might have our things that we're co-creating in our life that we want to call in, and then that's the trust fall, where we let go of that and we say, okay, say it's more love that I want to co-create in my life. How can I be more loving and show up as more loving?
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, the world is hungry for more loving. You got a million opportunities. There's someone down the street from you. There's someone in your office. There's someone in your family that you haven't talked to in a long time. There's a friend that maybe you could drop a call, check in on them, whether it's a formal intention experiment or not. You could be standing in the grocery store checkout line and just, the next time you see someone who seems like they're maybe out of sorts or not having the best day, just without them knowing, just random act of kindness, send positive intentions and love, and hold that higher vision of them happy, peaceful, calm, loving. There's that's totally kosher and a beautiful thing to do. And just, this makes life, like when you get up in the morning and you say, how good can it get? What do I have? You've said this before, Jennifer. What do I have to look forward to? This is what I want to leave the listeners with today. That let it be joyous, let it be fun, let it be miraculous, by simply allowing the day to surprise and delight you by how you choose to show up for it. And with that, also, I want to encourage people. We have a landing page over at meetthelight.com, where we only got, I think, 2 more chapters left to go in the book that we've been enjoying sharing with you. And we, after that, our intention is to create our own Power of 8 group, and we were looking for people who would like to be recipients. So you can go to that landing page there and to join our group as well too, to be co-creating and holding healing intentions as well. Again, you don't have to be formally trained as a healer as well. It's about, again, the power of showing up, no strings attached, to send the highest and the best intentions to other people. And this is such a wonderful, this is the best spiritual phys ed class you're ever going to attend, right? And the best way with all of this stuff is not just to read about it or talk about it, it's to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments and throughout the different shares we've had. We look forward to connecting with you next week when we're going to be looking at the chapter on a year of intention. Whoa, there we go, setting us up and for what's to follow. And Jennifer, thank you so much for all of your wonderful insights and beautiful shares today. It's always a pleasure, holding this conversation with you and holding space for all the exciting things that are emerging through this with you. It's an honor and a blessing.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Pollyanna. And we will see you next week as we go over chapter 20, A Year of Intentions. Bye-bye, everyone.